Welcome, Howard.
You basically, if you can hear me, Ivan, I'm phoning it in from there. You can see my view. The screen's not showing up, but is that what everybody's seeing, Ivan?
Yes, we can see your view. Some pool,
okay.
Skyder, and some.
Yeah, I'm not showing my face. They've lost my bags. Air France, the Pinko airline, they've lost my bags. So I just have been wearing the same clothes for 3 days, so I'm not showing. Luckily, Lulu clothes don't seem to stink, but I feel they are. So I'm not even going to show my face. I'm in shame wearing the same clothes. But happy Memorial Day. We are the markets are closed, but we are open on Momentum Mondays, and I am sitting poolside in Tuscany for a few weeks, Ivan. So
looks amazing.
Yeah, you can see the volatility. It's just brimming here in Italy. The amazing thing about Italy is politically the VIX is like 5,000, and economically the country is in turmoil always. You know, the stock market, I don't know, we'll pull it up, is just a disaster. Politics is a complete disaster here, yet the people somehow go about life without killing each other, I think. And generally it's, for an American here, you know, any kind of little problem is just blown out of proportion because you amping it up like an inch or 1,000, 1,000 doesn't get people to do anything that you want. You can't get your way here in Italy, so you kind of go with the flow. Has not worked well on Wall Street. The Italian markets are a turd. In a nice way. It's the best way to describe the Italian markets. But let's get to where the momentum is. That's what the show's about. And even though I'm in Tuscany, the show is brought to you by Market Smith and Investors Business Daily. And let's get to the charts, Ivan. The day off, we'll try and keep it a little bit shorter, but let's get to the charts.
Absolutely. Let me just switch my screen. Can you see the Market Smith charts?
I can see the charts. So now everybody should just be able to see the charts for the rest of the show?
Yes, I think so. Let me double check real quick.
Double checking.
Yes, they should be only seeing the chart. So this is Italy. You're seeing Italy. Let's go to a bigger time frame.
Just talk about what's not working. You know, it really had a good run. Let's go back even further.
Okay, let's go to a monthly time frame.
Let's go to monthly time because, you know, there's been some bounces here, and there's some pretty serious bounces along since 1995. So you can see the Italian markets. I don't even know if they represent anything other than sheer. I mean, that just kind of describes Italy. You know, I was in Florence. I've been here like 6 years in a row, 7 years in a row, maybe 8 years in a row at the train station in Florence, and I think they're still working on the exact same patch of road in front of the train station. For 8 years. So
Italy is back to its 1997 levels, basically.
Yeah, which is I think in Italy they would be surprised at how good that is, because that one by the freaking. I mean, we make fun of New York at Penn Station, which is a nice store, and you know, we can all pretty much agree on one thing, which is a lot of our airports feel like they're third world in the United States, but then you come to a true backwards economic and political nation of Italy, and they got more than just political problems. It's not just politics, but a lot of it's culture. But I mean, how do you put up with this? It's not even an effort at being outstanding, other than a lifestyle. So poor Italy. This is not where you go hunting for ideas, even though there's some great companies in Italy, like from B&B Italia, which makes high-end furniture, to Luxottica, which we've talked about on the show, and
also all right, Fiat. Don't forget Fiat. I mean, they've had quite a year last year.
Yeah. Okay. And by the way, Italians are very loyal to Fiat. They're all over the streets here. Yeah, I mean, if we can only point to one great company, though, I'm a little nervous about Italy. So let's get to the U.S. markets. They're closed and everybody has a day off.
The stock market is closed. The futures door are open. Crude oil continues to pull back after reaching multi-year highs earlier last week. If you look at crude oil seasonally, it tends to.
You have a chart of the Nasdaq up. So do we have anything about oil?
Oh yeah, let me show you crude oil real quick. As you can see, crude oil. This is a daily chart. We can do a weekly.
It really had a great rally into like long-term congestion.
Yeah, it basically doubled in the past year and a half, and then in the past week and a half, it's been in a pullback mode. And just
tell you what chart that looks amazingly similar to on a monthly is Twitter. Just talk, and you can just technically, you can see how if you look at it on a couple year basis, Twitter looks phenomenal. But then if you scale out and look at Twitter, you almost see the crude oil chart. I think if you overlap, and so you can see, even though it's like doubled as Twitter has, you can see that oil, just like Twitter, is coming on major resistance in the $80 area and decided to pull back. Now, fundamentally, completely different, but you can just see technically how people look, how institutions and algorithms look at stuff. Go and show a Twitter chart. You can almost see the same thing long term. See the way if you go back, is that a weekly? Yeah. So if you go back to a weekly, it's like exactly like an oil chart, which is pretty amazing, Ivan. Look at that. So I think obviously, and you can say Twitter is kind of like a commodity at some levels, because it sure isn't run like a phenomenal business. But anyways, you can see how technical factors do come into play and resistance and places where supply is. But Twitter looks phenomenal. Where oil is going through that first pullback that Twitter kind of went through at 37 down to 28. You can see that this uptrend that Twitter's in continues, to be solid. Relative strength rising to 94. So that's interesting. So go back, Ivan, to the Nasdaq.
Yeah, Twitter is looking amazing on both a daily and a weekly time frame.
All that resistance still over, from 2015, 2016. Nasdaq still looks phenomenal, and that's where most of the winners are. I'm not going to get into oil because I don't want to trend. I don't understand the industry and all the fundamentals are going around it. So what looks best within this Nasdaq, Ivan? I think enterprise, but what else looks great?
Almost anything. I mean, even if you go to Amazon, it's looking amazing. This is a weekly time frame, as you can see, like several weeks.
Go to a daily
tight range.
We haven't talked about Amazon in forever. It's
closes, and I think it's.
Oh my goodness!
It's kind of ready.
It's on my 8 to 80 list. I don't know how quietly it's just been drying up here. This stock looks like it's going much higher.
And the funniest thing is that the two best performing stocks on the Nasdaq 100 for the past 5 years or more, Amazon and Netflix, both of them have been trading with a PE of over 200, 250, and it didn't matter. Just because the market is often strives to be forward-looking, and it tries to price future earnings, future cash flows.
They're not too big to succeed. They're too big to fail. Let's look at JP Morgan on the other side of the extreme. I think it's setting up nicely too.
Oh, not that much. I mean, especially.
So the money centers have struggled. Goldman and JP. There's something going on, between. So the banks. I was going to get into this today. The banks gave up on Goldman. Let's pull up Goldman too.
Yeah, the banks are moving with interest rates. I mean, currently interest rates pulled back in the past week. And
stock, like I gave up on Goldman in the 240s. It's unownable, with interest rates rising. It had every chance to move higher. I was super bullish on Goldman, but it's not pretty. That is not a pretty. That's not a 32 relative strength. It got ugly pretty fast. Where's Citibank? Also weak, but yet Silicon Valley Bank, Ivan, strong as bull.
Yeah, they're one of the few exceptions.
I think it's like a bank, but the warrants from the Nasdaq. How is that not coming? That is an incredible. opposite. So I forget I'm having a little brain fart on the word, but I mean they're completely not trading with money centers. So you have the brokerages like Schwab.
Yeah.
Not okay, starting to pull back a little, but really technically super strong. I guess more benefiting from interest rates because of their cash. They're simple, just cash. They get money from the cash, their spreads. Whereas J.P. Morgan and Citibank, and I guess Wells Fargo, pull up Wells Fargo, where they're not passing any of those savings on to the users, the interest rate rise. So users' cash balance are still stuck at, basically fractions of a percent.
I think the big difference is that Silicon Valley Bank trades the momentum stocks, and it's owned by momentum long-term trend followers, while the rest of many of the rest of the financials, they're not really owned by the momentum crowd, and they move based on the move in interest rates. And as I said, in the past week, interest rates pulled back mainly due to the stuff going on in Europe, in Italy, where
relatively, Italy rates have spiked.
Yeah, and capital is flowing into U.S. Treasuries. Therefore, interest rates are pulling back, and this impacts the bank sector.
Okay, you're wasting your time in the banks here. So basically, what we're saying is really be careful in the banks. You've missed some huge opportunity, and the Nasdaq is still where everything is.
Yes, there are amazing setups among.
You've got strength in the Nasdaq 100. So now you want to look for individual names if you don't want to trade indexes.
Even in the entire semiconductor index,
look at them like a few weeks ago, in April. I mean, everybody, we were getting super cautious. You had to be really careful. And that turned out to be just another BTFD opportunity. Semis look great.
Yes.
Semis.
Last week I tweeted that they're setting up for a breakout. They broke out on Friday. Incredible strength in Micron, not only in terms of price action, but also in terms of earnings and sales growth and guidance for future growth. NVIDIA, even though it's up a gazillion % in the past couple of years, is setting up again like that 250 level. I think is the pivot level. And it's just looking great.
Maybe it's machines. Listen, we can make all the fun we want. People can deny Bitcoin and blockchain and Ethereum and EOS and all the rest of them. But the point is machines are money. Machines are currency. And the semiconductors are really behind that. Whereas a printing press, the old printing press for money was it was paper. The digital printing press is semiconductors, right? And so from AI, machine learning, natural language processing, the fridge that tells you your weight, and there's an intruder, to the doorbells on your house that Amazon sells. The semiconductors probably are more important than the financials at this point. Semiconductors may just be the new financials, meaning they're not as at some point interest rates will matter because they got to build out fabs. So at some point interest rates will matter, but not quite yet. So for me, semiconductors don't do it for me. I'm still looking for even better strength. Although NVIDIA is a tell in this industry, because it benefits from so many things, from gaming to crypto, to smart to the smart home. Okay, so what enterprise stocks? HUBS, I hate the company. HubSpot, long story, but I don't like them. Don't like the board. But enterprise, personal feelings aside, marketing automation, this company's been digesting huge gains going sideways. If we looked at one that I own, Okta, HubSpot's just going to be around for generation. Here's Okta. They are the clear winner in identity now, single sign-on, in terms of when you have 1,000 employees and when you fire one and you're worried about how to get them out of all the machines at once. All the software products that your company uses. Okta is right now the public proxy for companies doing that. Google bought a company called Bidium that was in my portfolio, so Google's in this business too. But Okta is a pure play, and you're seeing the benefit. We recommended that stock at 30. Now it's sitting at 60 octa or 50, and just relentless. It wouldn't chase, but the dips are being bought. Any 20% sell-off seem to be gifts in these names. They're expensive, of course, so you don't chase. Google. Let's take a look at Google. Completely underperformed relative to the NASDAQ since '08. If we go back to, I'm long Google, maybe just too lazily. Just not being, there's no reason to really have sold it, but it's definitely underperformed the leaders coming out of '08. If we go to a monthly, did I lose you, Ivan? Oh,
no, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, so if we go to a monthly, I mean, it's beautiful. It's just, it's digesting gains. Go back to the daily on Google. I don't know if it's all the lawsuits or all the regulation, but you can see now pretty much 2 years, 3 years of sideways action, or is that just a year?
Oh, that's just a year, Howard.
Yeah, so basically, it's looked a few times like it's going to break. Relative strength wise, there's no reason if you've got a full portfolio to get in here, but it could play catch up. If the market stays strong, could play catch up. One of the great companies that quietly got mentioned this weekend as even an Airbnb competitor is Booking.com, which is Priceline, BKNG. Relentless stock. And that's just the digesting massive gains. If you go to the weekly, I mean, just an incredible. And if we go to a monthly, Ivan, look at that. So in '08, that stock was $30. Is that unbelievable, Ivan?
In 2001, it was under $5. Or more.
This company doesn't get any press from Wall Street. And if you look, I bet you if you told people Priceline had changed its name to Brookings, 90% of investors wouldn't even know what Bookings is. Really impressive company. But now even Airbnb saying that they are a competitor. So, and Airbnb is one of the great startups of all time, and a Booking. So, I mean, Booking still could be early, digesting gains. All the travel stocks, Ivan, are digesting here. Really interesting setups in some of these travel companies.
It's a highly competitive industry. Just Priceline has been able to remain a leader by acquiring anything more interesting and innovative.
Forcing everybody to gear up to leaders. So trading, it seems like on travel you got to stick with Booking. My play has been MMYT, the India plan. Let's check in on that. It's been a while since I checked it. Digesting some good gains. I just can't get above 40, which is, an area where there may be no looking back when if India can get if they can get through there. What, Ivan, looks interesting to you?
And actually, MMYT are scheduled to report earnings later this week. And we'll see. I mean, I'm sure their sales growth continue to be impressive, but what puzzles me is that how come they continue to lose money? They should be in the money printing business. But
I think the economy there is such where, the Indians just as an economy just don't spend gobs of money yet, just in terms of the overall. But I mean, so I said, I treated this more like a venture capital company.
It's an emerging market. One setup that
I expect big returns one day. It's one that you got to let go once it really starts to run. And it's already a big company in terms of market cap, but it's going to have 20%, 30% dips. Just so you got to treat it like a venture stock. Let's go to some of your ideas, Ivan, and like some obscure ones that are breaking out.
Okay, so let's start with a big one, not an obscure one. Alibaba. I think there are many eyes on this stock for a reason. It's just setting up on several time frames. On Friday, it tried to break out above 200. I think it's looking good for both swing and position traders. It's setting up. It's probably one of the strongest looking Chinese stocks.
Yep.
Right.
Keep going. Battling at 200 relative. Yeah. I mean, it's the safe Chinese play, I guess. It's still a little crowded for me. What else looks interesting?
Another interesting stocks to me is IDEX laboratories. They are a leader in a veterinary diagnostic and testing markets. They own 60% of that market, and it's been a tremendous uptrend in the past few years, and every dip continues to get bought, and they continue to actually gain market share in that industry. So that's a very interesting play on pets. And another one which sells pet insurance is starting to build a new base again.
Yeah, we were along that, and we used to talk about that last year. It had a good run from low 20s to the high 30s.
Yeah.
So it's digesting those gains. Interesting. Yeah. Kind of a simple business, but the earnings aren't great. So I don't know.
They're not.
I had a good run, but that's interesting. All right, keep going. Some other names. Well, what's interesting about pet business is that one of our companies, WAG, raised 400 million, and then their competitor Rover has just raised 200 million. So the dog walking business seems to be where VCs would prefer to put their money. God forbid we should help the homeless people. The joke is the VCs have found 700 million to put to work in pet walking business, but we're just going to leave people rotting in the streets in San Francisco. So that's been a big argument on Twitter amongst the right. Okay, so Trupanion, keep going.
So another one that I think is setting up is Square. I think it's had an amazing run, and many people think it's extended. But if I had to choose between Square and PayPal, I would still prefer to own Square.
PayPal made an interesting acquisition, though. Kind of, it looks like the market is voting that they had to do that deal because PayPal.
Yep. It's PayPal is also looking decent. It is setting up at that level. As long as it holds 80, and then it breaks out again, probably it'll offer a decent new entry if you don't own it yet. Square is the same way. It's just building a new base, which is what strong stocks do. They have amazing runs, and then they spend a few weeks to a few months.
What's happening? If the stock fell 30%, it would be a target. So so all the institutions are buying it on every dip because at $35 you got Alibaba, Tencent. Anybody who wants to get in the payment space in the United States legally, I don't know if they could with antitrust. But at some level, all these, PayPal, Square, they're acquisition targets for foreign companies who want to compete with the banks and financial service companies here. I don't know if that's, like I said, I don't know how the institutions are thinking, but the dips are being bought. And it's not because they're cheap. It's not because these stocks are cheap. Square in 2019, what on Market Smith it shows 77 cents. So it's still trading at, 70 times. It's not a high margin business, 70 times next year's earnings. But, that's what momentum is, and that's what it looks like. Square's weekly is what momentum looks like, Ivan.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable uptrend after the first few months of
let's end with what's on our list, SL50. Let's just go quickly to the list, if anything new showed up.
Yeah, there's some names.
ServiceNow, Enterprise, Twitter's been there 2 weeks. Cornerstone On Demand, and LA Internet. Boy, I used to own that stock, so it's back on the list. Square's
looking good, yeah.
So it's all software. Jesus, it's all software.
Yeah,
truly is.
There's some alt names coming back. This one is interesting. PGTI. Let me pull up the chart real quick. With a breakout last week. It's an interesting name, as you can see. It's setting up on a daily time frame. Maybe if you're a swing trader, that's an interesting name to keep.
Are bored and don't like software. Yep, there are other setups. PGTI. Okay, what else? We go down there. It's all software from Grubhub, Zendesk. All the old favorites. So there's nothing new to really say, except that Italy is a mess. But that's not new either, other than I'm just living it right now. And what is it? Most of these companies are software companies. Intuitive Surgical, you know, just robots and software, nanometrics, HubSpot, geez, and Chinese education. Okay, Ivan, have a great week. Thanks, Market Smith, just for the incredible sponsorship and support with these charts. Anything else, Ivan?
No, that's all, Howard. Have a great time in Italy, and see you in a month.
Okay, no, but I'll be back. We'll do the show next week.
Okay,
Cheers.
bye.